cooperated with a very good interaction, very thought-provoking questions you asked, and the resource persons were very much happy about interacting with you all. It was such a wonderful feedback that we received from the resource persons, and it is the same thing from you also, know that we have received such good things. The intention of this faculty development program is to give you this experience, right? So the teachers sharing knowledge. The resource persons are also very much happy about the participants of the way the questions are asked, the kind of questions that were asked. They were all very much happy, and because of this, since the participants and the resource persons are happy, we the organizers are also feeling so happy about this faculty development program. And for the fourth day, now we have our learned resource person, Dr. Jeyappriya, from Professor and Head, Department of English, from Mother Teresa Women's University, Kodaikanal. And it is always, as I told you in the beginning itself, we have chosen such resource persons who can give you some new perspectives about research trends. See, our resource persons that we have invited have all unique in particular aspects. No, they will give you some new perspectives in literary research or language research. So, in such a way, Madam will talk to you on action research. No, you might have heard about our former HOD, our founder head, Dr. Palanivel, speaking about the intervention of science and scientific methodology in the research of English studies. So this is the period. It is now our research, as many of you might have seen when Mahanta sir was talking about. Some of you have asked about medical humanities, and some of you asked about digital humanities. Yes, so it is, things are happening in that way only. Our research is moving in that direction. A data based analytical research is emerging. And today, as I told you, Madam will talk about action research. It will be new for many of us, and that is how she speaks. No, we have listened to her speech in some occasions, and in some of the Viva Voce examinations, I have listened to her that she will give new interpretation for many of the concepts. Whether they are related to literary criticism or to language theories, that she used to give such wonderful interpretation and explanation. And her perspective related to English language teaching and language research is always new, and that is the one we need to acquire from her. No, she will talk to us about the relevance of action research in academia. And I hope, like all other sessions that we had, this also will be enlightening and very much informative. Welcome, ma'am. We are waiting for your lecture. Welcome, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Padmanabhan, for a wonderful introduction. Respected Head of the Department, Dr. Nagarajan, my faculty members from Department of English and Foreign Languages at Jeyappriya University, participants from various institutions across the country, wish you all a very happy and healthy morning. I'm indeed privileged to be a part of this FDP program, and I'm happy to be here on this day to speak to you on action research. Shall I share my screen now? Can I?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. So, relevance of action research in academia. It is so interesting to talk to you all, since we have a all the teachers here in this FDP program, I thought rather than talking to you on novels or literature-based stuff, I thought I can talk to you on action research in academia and how it is important and how you can carry over this research in your classroom teaching and other stuff. So to start with, what are the classroom implications? This is the initial stuff, how I wanted to start. Because we are not in classroom, we are not teaching in classroom for the past 4 or 5 months, I would say. And the classroom interaction is completely crucial. And we can say it is an interesting, relaxing, and fun-filled activity. And the students are more likely to, to speak more in the classrooms. So problems always occur in classroom teaching as students prefer new technique that make their learning easier and effective. So therefore, every teacher needs to do research on his or her class every semester. So there comes action research, I would say. So what is action research? So action research is a
Ma'am,
process of, yes,
ma'am,
yes,
ma'am,
yes.
please open the PPT, ma'am. It is yet to open.
Oh, you didn't? But
Screen.
I can see my PPT here.
Yes, yes.
Should I, should I stop sharing and then open again?
No, ma'am. You can open now. Now
No,
it's
it's open.
No,
It's
no,
open.
you can stop sharing and then open, ma'am.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
Still we see your download folder, not the PPT.
Oh my God. But I can see my PPT here.
The other folder is visible, ma'am, not the.
The folder is only visible, is it? Okay. Let me check again.
You can choose to present the screen, ma'am. You would have chosen a window.
No,
You
no,
can
no. I'm just clicking share screen, right?
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
and then it'll be
I
having
said,
options.
okay, fine. Is it okay now?
One
Yeah.
second.
1 minute.
It says your screen sharing is fast.
Uh, Wait, ma'am.
Maybe you can cancel it and you can do that again, ma'am. Please.
Yeah, I'll do it right now. Is that okay now?
It is yet to visible, ma'am. One second.
In case you have difficulty, you just mail it to me, ma'am. I'll show
Yeah,
it from my.
I can do it right now. I can do it right now so that I can start speaking here. Dr. David, I have sent it to you.
Okay, ma'am. I'll check it.
Right. So what is action research, and why do we insist on action research? As I've been talking to you all about the current situation, we have not been to a classroom, and we are not, talking to the children like all these 4 to 5 months. I mean, we don't interact with them in person, but we keep interacting virtually. But in this situation, I personally feel that action research is more important. Now, how do you define action research? So, what is action research? So, action research is a process of systematic inquiry that seeks to improve the social issues affecting the lives of everyday people. Historically, the term action research has been long associated, with the work of Kurt Lewin, who viewed the research methodology as cyclical, dynamic, and collaborative in nature. So, through repeated cycles of planning, observing, and reflecting, individuals and groups engaged in in kind of action research can implement changes required for social improvement. Excuse me, Dr. David, I'm unable to move the slides.
You can tell me, ma'am, I'll operate from here.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Maybe shall we move on to the next slide, please? Yeah, will be here. So to extend this notion, this action research is viewed as as a collaborative process carried out by those with a shared concern, we can say. Moreover, these authors who have framed this action research suggest that action research is a form of collective reflective inquiry undertaken by participants in social situations in order to improve the rationality and justice of their own social and educational practices, as well as their understanding of these practices and the situations in which these practices are carried out. The next slide. So the process of action research seeks to bring together action and reflection, theory and practice in participation with others in the pursuit of practical solutions to issues of pressing concern to people, and more generally the flourishing of individual persons and their communities. So broadly speaking, action research enables researchers to develop a systematic inquiring approach towards their own practices, which is oriented towards effective positive change in this practice or within a broader community. So what is action research? You can as well read from here. Action research can be a powerful and liberating form of professional inquiry. Practitioners themselves investigate their own practice as they find ways of living more fully in the direction of their educational values. And they are not told what to do. They decide for themselves what to do in negotiation with others, and this can work in relation to individual and also collective inquiries. So more group of practitioners are getting together to investigate their collective work and put their stories of learning into the public domain. So your story can add to that collection and strengthen it. So let's move on. Next slide. Next slide, please. So benefits of doing action research in the classroom. So action research is an attractive option for teacher researchers and other stakeholders in the teaching and learning environment to consider. Specifically, this research in education can be defined as the process of studying a situation to understand and improve the quality of the educative process. So it provides practitioners with new knowledge and understanding about how to improve educational practices or resolve significant problems in classrooms. So action research uses a very systematic process which is participatory in nature and offers multiple beneficial opportunities for those professionals working within the teaching profession. So these opportunities include facilitating the professional development of educators, increasing teacher empowerment, and bridging the gap between research and practice. So these opportunities need to be explored. So within education, the main goal of action research is to determine ways to enhance the lives of children, that is students. At the same time, action research can enhance the lives of those professionals who work within educational system. So next slide, please. So what happened in the last couple of months where we prepared for it? Please ponder over these points. From classroom to Zoom rooms, we've just switched over. From Blackboard to virtual world. From invigilated assessment exams to online submission and quizzes. From teacher-centric to student-centric. From pedagogy to panic-gogy. So, how are we prepared to face this? How are we going to come out of this particular situation? Next slide, please. So here I would say action research can help us to navigate and transform our way of teaching, especially during a time like COVID-19 pandemic. We all teachers should take up this action research to enhance our teaching in a virtual classroom. Next slide. So what is online teaching or online medium and online kind of learning? So this is known as the education that takes the internet completely. It is often referred to as e-learning or distance learning. All the educational institutions nowadays, they use this LMS, learning management systems such as Moodle, Blackboard, or similar software as a replacement for classes. So assignments are submitted online, discussions are in a forum format, and emailing professors is very prompt. So this excellent learning methodology comes along with, convenience, greater flexibility, and greater accessibility also. Yeah, next, please. So, online teaching, how do we find this online teaching interesting as teachers? See, the lessons can be completed around your schedule without leaving home or having to relocate depending on the rain, snow, or sunshine. No geographical and time barriers. And the technological skills are improved automatically while studying, and the student learns on his or her pace. We can see. Next. So how can we improve? Can action research help us to better ourselves? So how can we improve? So action research has been directly linked to the professional growth and development of teachers. So according to Henson, action research helps, maybe next slide please, helps teachers develop a new knowledge directly related to their classrooms, and it promotes reflective teaching and thinking, and it expands teachers' pedagogical repertoire. It puts teachers in charge of their craft, and it reinforces the link between practice and student achievement, and it fosters an openness towards new ideas and learning new things, and gives teachers ownership of effective practices. Therefore, providing teachers with the necessary skills, knowledge, and focus to engage in meaningful inquiry about their professional practice will enhance this practice and effect positive change or changes concerning the educative goals of the learning community. So as a corollary to the professional growth opportunities offered to the teachers, action research also facilitates teacher empowerment. In particular, teachers are empowered when they are able to collect and use data in making informed decisions about their own classrooms. So within the classroom, empowered teachers can implement practices that best meet the needs of their students and complement their particular teaching philosophy and instructional style. So in exercising their individual talents or experiences and creative ideas within the classroom, teachers are empowered to make changes related to teaching and learning. So by doing so, student achievement is enhanced. Next slide, please. Maybe before that, so I would like to tell you that action research bridges the gap between research and practice always. For instance, the theoretical components underpinning action research practice are used to help practitioners understand and observe what is happening in a classroom setting. In a similar vein to the enhancement of the professional disposition of teachers, action research encourages teachers to become continuous learners within their classrooms. Because of the professional, reflective stance required by practitioners engaged in the action research sequence, teachers are further encouraged to examine the dynamics of their classrooms, ponder the actions and interactions of students, validate and challenge existing practices, and take risks in the process. So these specific actions are similar to those regularly exercised by teachers on a daily basis using what you call a systematic strategic action plan which provides those daily actions with increased structure, focus, and methodological rigor. So action research has been described as a spiraling, a cycling process as a research cycle and as a helix, we can say. So the action research helix is commonly referred to as the look, think and act model, as you see here in the slide. So in the look stage, information is gathered by careful observation through looking and listening. During the think stage, researchers analyze the collected information to identify significant features and elements of the phenomenon being studied. And finally, the act stage is where the newly formulated information is used to devise solutions to the issue being investigated. So look is gather data, define and describe the situation or problem. So think is to explore and analyze the problem and findings. Act is plan, implement and evaluate. So therefore, the design followed the spiral structure for looking the classroom, to identify the situation, think the reality after the classroom activities, and make a plan for next activities based on students' performances. So the data gathering process is divided into three phases here. In first phase, there is interaction with students about their problems and possible solutions. The second phase is guided by the structured guidelines for interaction that was developed in the first interaction. And the third phase is the stage where they look their performance, think for solution, and implement the solution that explored with a close interaction with students. So this is look, think, and act. Next slide, please. So what is the purpose of action research? So the action research, it generates a special kind of knowledge. It has always been understood as people taking action to improve their personal and social situations. Some see its potential for promoting a more productive and peaceful world order, I would say. So the next slide, please. A notional action research plan. So as you see here in the slide, you can just find out how this action research goes. So you take stock of what is going on. and you identify a concern, you think of a possible way forward, you try it out, you monitor the action by gathering the data, and you evaluate progress by establishing procedures for making judgments about what is happening, and you test the validity of accounts of learning, and you modify practice in the light of evaluation. So this is the notional action research plan in action research. Next slide, please. We move on to the action reflection cycle here. So this action reflection cycle, this moves in new directions, which is generally known as action reflection. Although, no single term is used in the literature, but because the process tends to be cyclical, as we started with that, the process is cyclical. It is often referred to as an action reflection cycle. So the process is ongoing because as soon as we reach a provisional point where we feel things are satisfactory, that point itself raises new questions and it is time to begin again. So this is how this action reflection cycle works. Okay, now next slide. So when to use social research? Maybe before that, I just want you to check this traditional social science questions and action research questions. There is a difference. Just maybe, for example, if you look at the first question, what is the relationship between teacher motivation and teacher retention? But here in action research, the question is, how do I influence the quality of teachers' experience in colleges so that they decide to stay? Does management style influence worker productivity? Whereas here the question is, how do I improve my management style to improve worker productivity? And here, will a different seating arrangement increase audience participation? Or here, how do I encourage greater audience participation through trying out different seating arrangements? So you can see the research questions, in action research it's completely different. You involve yourself into it in all these action research. Yeah, next slide, please. So when to use action research, right? So we use action research when you want to evaluate whether what you are doing is influencing your own or other people's learning, or whether you need to do something different to ensure it. So here we have three examples, like improve your understanding, develop your learning, influence others' learning. So here, in improve your understanding, the relations are strained in your workplace. How are you going to find it out? Why? So that you can do something about it. Your students are achieving remarkably high scores. Why? Is it your teaching, their extra study, or a new classroom environment? How do you learn to encourage people to be more positive? That is, develop your learning. How do you develop your learning? How do you learn to improve your own timekeeping and influence others' learning? How do you do this? How do you help your colleagues to develop more inclusive pedagogies? And how do you encourage your senior management team partners to listen more carefully to employees? So these are just examples, like when to use action research. Next slide, please. So now, again, we have this questions. How do I questions and what is happening here questions. So how, for example, take the second one. How do I encourage my students to read? So this is how your traditional research stops. How do I encourage my students to read? Whereas here, we have umpteen number of questions like, what kind of books do my students read at present? How many categories of books are in college library? Or how much time is given to independent reading in the curriculum? So you have such questions to answer, and this brings out your action research. Next slide, please. Okay. Social purpose of action research. So, social purpose here refers to why we do research in relation to informing and improving the social context. I have given you 3 points here. The first one, it aims to improve work practices through improving learning. So, action research can be workplace based, not exclusively higher education based, as traditional research tends to be, and is undertaken by practitioners who regard themselves as researchers, who may or may not be supported by higher education personnel. The aim is to improve practice through improving learning. Improved practices do not just happen. They can improve when people think carefully about what they need to do differently in relation to others. It is then the responsibility of practitioners to produce public accounts that show how their improved learning has led to improved practices. So these accounts would contain practitioners' theories of practice, which have arisen from within the practice and now connect with the accounts of practice. So practitioners here produce accounts that themselves come to constitute a body of theory. So these are the personal practical theories of practitioners which describe and explain process of working as a living practice. So this is why it is important for you to put your story of practice into the public domain, because you can show how you are contributing to new discourses about how practice should be seen as a living form of theory. So the next point, it aims to promote the ongoing democratic evaluation of learning and practices. So action research is such a common sense approach to personal and professional development that when people first meet the idea, they often say, that's what I do in any case. What's different? What is different is that action research insists on justifying, claims to knowledge by the production of authenticated and validated evidence, and then making the claims public in order to subject them to critical evaluations. However, evaluation itself is a problematic concept because different people have different views about what it entails. While most would agree that evaluation aims to establish the value of something, what is valuable for one person is not necessarily valuable for another. Consequently, different views exist about who should do evaluation and why, and what they are supposed to be evaluating. So traditional perspectives regard evaluation as evaluating a thing or a product. So action research here, however, is an ongoing process of developing learning and action and reflection on the learning and action. The process is generative and transformational because the end of one thing becomes the beginning of something. So all organic systems have their own internal generated capacity to transform themselves into ever more fully developed versions of themselves. So it is not a case of working towards a notional perfect end state, because a living system always has the potential to transform into even more fully realized states. So action research is this kind of generative transformational process where claims to improve learning and practice generate further learning to improve practice. So the question therefore arises here, who evaluates what? So in traditional interpretive approaches, which work from a spectator's point of view, an external researcher makes judgments on what other people are doing. From a self-study perspective, the researcher evaluates their own work. So this calls for, considerable honesty and the capacity to listen to and act on critical feedback. So the third point, it aims to create, good social orders by influencing the education of social formations. So again, in action research, the situation changes from an external person studying, them as studying as them, to an individual studying me, or a collective of individuals studying us. So each person asks, how do I improve what I am doing for my own and others' benefit? Each person is seen as an agent with a capacity for influencing their own and others' practices. So a collective has the potential to influence wider, social change. So this tends to be, much more difficult than it sounds, because working together means working in a way that regards all as legitimate participants whose different traditions and ways of thinking needs to be valued. So this may be straightforward in contexts where all share more or less the same value base and came from more or less the same tradition, but can be problematic in contexts where parties hold, different values or different perspectives and come from radically different traditions. So further, in politically contested contexts where one party is dominant, that party may mobilize their resources to continue subjugating the other. So the subjugated party then comes to be seen and sometimes to believe that they are not worthy of being regarded as legitimate participants, but remain as peripheral and subservient. So this is a small example, but in many cases, the oppression leads to such frustration that feelings spill over into violence. So this also happens, but in action research, people begin by holding themselves accountable. They do not make judgments on others without first making judgments on themselves. And they do not expect others to do anything they are not prepared first to do themselves. So the education of social formations begin with each participant learning to recognize themselves as other to the other. So I'm subject to the same conditions of entry to a community that they wish to enforce for others. So how do we improve this? Next slide, please. Okay. So learning to improve practice, improving practice. So how do we do this? The first point here is, as a practitioner researcher, your real work is to improve learning. In order to improve practice, improvement is not something done by one person to another, but is a matter of influence. You do not set out to impose change on people and their ways. Change imposed by an external agency does little for sustainable renewal. Change that comes from within and in accordance with people's own felt wishes, it does. So your work is to contribute to your own and other people's capacity to think independently and decide how you wish to live, recognizing that individuals are always in company with others. So it is in two sections, you can see, understanding the influence and exercising influence to improve practice. So what is understanding influence? So here people sometimes think and act and make choices. This doesn't just happen. We learn from our books, families, friends, and colleagues according to the specific tradition of our particular culture. So some people choose not to be influenced by social norms and do their own thing. But this choice is itself influenced by other voices. Our relationships of influence are multidimensional. They are horizontal in terms of who we are interacting with at the time, and vertical, existing through space and time. So most of us are influenced by what went before and by visions of the future. As well as being influenced by others, each person has the capacity for influence. What we say and do potentially influences others. So whether we realize it or not. So this has enormous implications for you all. So how do you ensure that your influence contributes in a life-affirming way? How do you help yourself and others to grow as teachers? In which direction do you want to grow? Towards critical self-reflection, or towards reinforcing prejudices? Visiting, other theorists also helps, and some visits to the literature can help in this. So maybe I would like to mention some theorists like Rousseau and Hume. They believe that a child is born as a blank slate or an empty vessel into which learning, usually information, is poured into that vessel. So they seem to believe that people have to learn to become human. So on the other hand, Chomsky says that people have an infinite capacity of for knowledge, knowledge generation as part of their genetic makeup. So on this view, we have we have unlimited potentials to learn an infinite amount of new knowledge. We know how things are, but cannot always explain why. And we know how to do some things without knowing how we do it. For example, riding a bike. Process of coming to know, that is learning, are complex. One view is that we raise our deep tacit knowledge to an explicit level. So this idea can be linked with Chomsky's or Gatte's ideas about generative transformational capacity, developmental process that enables a present form to emerge as a new form. So combining these ideas gives rise to a theory of learning that accepts the infinite capacity of humans to create an infinite number of new forms of knowledge and to transform their existing knowledge into new improved forms. So this means that each person should be recognized as having the capacity for creative choice and for making original contributions. And now let's link this with an idea that if people are not capable of not learning, that is, we must learn as part of our genetic makeup. The question arises here: how do people decide what to learn? This has implications for practitioners with agency. Do we exercise our influence in ways that respect each person's uniqueness of mind and unlimited capacity for unlimited acts of creation, or do we aim to influence so that we deny those opportunities? So do we give others the choice to exercise their capacity for choice? So influence does not just happen, although it can appear to. So accepting or rejecting influence is a matter of choice. We hear voices everywhere. Which ones we attend to is up to us. We are all able, we are all able to exercise our critical judgment when deciding what to think and how to think. So having said this, it has to be recognized that some people choose not to think for themselves, and other people are persuaded to, to believe certain things. And this is a case of insidious influence, I would say. So it is a matter not only of you influencing others, but also of how you are influenced. So what you do and how you do is your choice. Choosing is one of your freedoms. Choices frequently involve tension, which can be both creative and obstructive. So try choosing between two equally attractive pairs of shoes. Is that possible? So choices are also not simply a matter of right and wrong, but often a question of choosing between competing rights rather. So often this cannot be settled. So unless we choose to resort to force, we have to learn how to negotiate, a way through so that all can live as we wish in company with others who want to do the same. So now, what is exercising influence to improve practice? How do you achieve this? So you can show how you are improving practice by exercising your influence to improve learning. In other words, how you understand, how you understand or how you are exercising your educational influence. Does your account of practice show you thinking of for yourself and encouraging others to think for themselves? So, do you create the kinds of relationships that will encourage people to feel safe enough to critique? So this means they can also critique you. So how do you show that you are influencing in an educational way and not cleverly manipulating? Sometimes, so these matters are too complex to resolve, and we have to go on trust. You can, however, do some things that will help people to trust you. If you have reason to trust you in some things, they will be more likely to trust you in the intangibles too. So trust can be established when you show that you are committed to your own knowledge and you produce evidence to support what you are saying. Nevertheless, this should not prevent each one of us from making our claims to knowledge with universal intent. That is, saying that we have learned something with the intent of helping others to learn from our learning. We must also be open to, ongoing critique, and so that we can refine our learning in light of critique. Right? So, as you have improved practicing it, you've learned to practice it. What do you do next? You contribute to a new theory. Can I have the next slide, please? You contribute to a new theory. How to contribute? So this all we have seen. Next slide, Dr. David, and next one too. Yeah. How do we contribute to a new theory? So first, consider what inspires your life. What gives our lives meaning is our ability to enjoy loving relationships and productive work. And what are the values that give your life meaning? Articulating values can be difficult, but it is important to do so. Second, consider whether you are living in a way that is consistent with your values. If you are, how can you show it? If you are not, what can you do about it? Again, articulate this in some way so that people can access the descriptions you give for what is happening and your explanations for why it is happening. So now show how you address this particular issue. Again, offering descriptions of what you're doing and explanations for for why you are doing it. So this will involve you in gathering data and later generating evidence from the data to support your claim that you have addressed the issue. You will also have to validate your evidence by testing it against other people's opinions too. And finally, write a report of what you have done and give it to someone to read. Or you can as well produce a multimedia presentation and show it to colleagues in your workplace. Although this process has been disciplined and systematic, it has been entirely achievable and not too difficult. It has in fact been a process of generating theory. Your descriptions and explanations of your learning as you work to improve your practice are your theory. There is nothing esoteric about this. It is a systematic procedure for accounting for your practice, what you do or why you do. Furthermore, it shows that you are not just doing it in a haphazard way, but you are thinking carefully and responsibly about your actions and their influence in other people's lives. Now, let's tie this in with ideas about the need for you to believe in yourself and not be persuaded that generating theory is difficult or that you are capable of doing it. So be aware of what is going on. Be aware of the messages you are hearing, which ones are true, and be aware that you are more likely to believe false messages and retain existing biases when you are on your own. Access some of the work already in existence and you will soon see that you are not alone and that other people also wish to overcome inappropriate biases and do not want to believe false messages. So plenty of practitioners are putting their theories of practice into the public domain and other people are learning from them. So be aware that other people need to hear that they are not alone either, and they should take courage perhaps from accessing your work. You have something important to say. So how are you contributing to a new theory? So you are empowering yourself as a researcher. You are constantly generating valuable theories and modifying them to keep up to date with your developing practice. You are reconceptualizing yourself as a researcher, not only as a teacher. Your practice is a form of research, and your research is a form of practice. So other people can learn from your example and empower themselves. You are refusing to be relegated as just a teacher. You are creating a new professional identity as a practitioner, researcher, and you are developing new professional discourses with others who also regard themselves as practitioner researchers. So you are getting involved in debates about the nature of practice and its uses. You are not prepared to accept the messages that your work is to deliver a service or a curriculum. Your work is to influence learning for improving practice. So you are contributing to the wider body of knowledge within a tradition called the new scholarship. And this is how you contribute to a new theory in your action research. Let's move on to the feasibility planning now. Next slide, please. Okay, feasibility planning. So here I have the practical aspects. Now you have to connect this with the proposed action plan of yours. Like now, assess realistically whether you can address these questions which you see in the slide in terms of your current circumstances and context and the resources you need. You also need to consider ethical issues about how you are going to involve others in your research. So let's take the first question. What is my concern? So you have a concern about an aspect of practice, but is it realistic to focus on this aspect? Can you actually do something about it? Will you be allowed to do it? What would happen if, say, you wanted to investigate how you could improve relationships among different religious groupings in your workplace? So this would involve you establishing to, what extent your workplace already encouraged good relationships, or whether prejudice was possibly structured into practices. Or perhaps you want to find ways of encouraging greater staff participation in decision making. So what is my concern? So it answers here. So why am I concerned? The second question, why am I concerned? You can check this out for yourself by, for example, setting up a role play situation and inviting someone to play you. Or you could even videotape yourself in action and see yourself as others see you. These are risky strategies, I would say, and can lead to some destabilization also. You have to be a little careful, but they can also be very, very powerful in helping you to see where you need to take action and resolve to do so. So the third question, what experiences can I describe to show why I am concerned? So producing evidences means gathering data and generating evidences from the data to support or even to refute a claim that you have learned something new. So gathering data means observing yourself in relation with other people. Will you be able to do this? Will you have access to the people you need? Will you be able to negotiate with people to help you in your inquiry? Just ponder over all these questions. Fourth one, what can I do about it? So what can I do about it? Asking this particular question means that you intend looking at your options for actions. Will you have options? Do you need to ask someone's opinion or get clearance or go through a permission process? Will you meet the opposition? So there comes what can I do about it? And what will I do about it? See, look at the difference. What can I do about it? And now here, what will I do about it? So this particular question implies that you will take action with intent. Will you be able to implement your decision? Will you be able to carry through a project in a what do you need to think about first? Will you have the stamina and time and resources and support of family? What will you give up in order to put your research in? Will you maintain the moral conviction that you are doing something worthwhile? So this is what will I do about it. Next comes, what kind of data will I gather to show the situation as it unfolds, right? So this means, this means gathering more data, to show how people are learning in response to your influence. Will you be able to gather data on this ongoing basis? Will you have sufficient time and equipment? Sometimes people get the impression that you are researching them rather than researching yourself. So how do you prepare for this and cope with it? How do you persuade people that your learning is a kind of vital piece of improving others' learning? So the next question is, how will I explain my educational influences in learning? See, furthermore, how will you show that your own learning is influencing further learning? For example, you can influence your own learning by deciding to question your own assumptions and change them when and where necessary. You can influence the learning of others with whom you work, and you can influence what we term as education of social formations. That is, you can influence groups of people to learn new ways of working together. How will you gather data and generate evidence to show these things? So there stops, this question. So the eighth question, how will I ensure that any conclusions I come to are reasonably fair and accurate, right? So here you will need to find critical friends and convene a dedicated validation group who are prepared to offer you constructive critique about your evidence and claims to knowledge. So will you be able to find such a group? Will they be willing to meet with you on several occasions? Organizing meetings takes enormous amount of time and energy. Are you up for it? Will you have the personal resources to deal with any adverse critic? And will you have the courage to rethink your position and challenge your prejudices in light of their feedback? So how will I evaluate the validity of the evidence-based account of my learning? Very interesting. When you produce your accounts, such as your progress and final research reports, you will make a claim to knowledge. That is, you will say that you know something now that you didn't know before. You have learned something new, but about practice and about your own learning. So making a claim to knowledge includes different aspects, like making the claim, establishing criteria and standards of judgments, and generating evidence from the data in relation to the criteria, and what you call the standards of judgments. So will you take every care in the detail of these procedural aspects, recognizing that they are essential for demonstrating the validity of your evidence-based account of learning? Will you develop your own understanding of these issues to the extent that you can make clear what you have done and why you have done it? So, how will I modify my concerns, ideas, and practice in the light of my evaluations? Right. So, will you be open to new learning according to what the data reveal? Sometimes data shows us things we would rather not see. Are you prepared for this? And to modify your own behavior in light of the evidence. So all these questions, so these are the practical aspects which you have to connect it with the proposed action plan if you have. Next slide, please. We have the feasibility planning resources here. So these are the required resources for your planning of your action research, like time, equipment, people, participants, critical friends and validators, validation groups, and interested observers. Next one comes to the ethical values. Next slide, please. Yeah. So ethical issues, you have 3 points here: negotiating and securing access. Here, you must negotiate and get permission to do your research before you begin. This means formally seeking permission in writing or producing these permission letters is a matter of sensible negotiation in research projects that deal with sensitive issues where you may decide on limited disclosure. So to repeat, this is not just an issue of courtesy, I would say, and protecting your participants. How do you protect your participants? Make sure that you do not name or otherwise identify your participants unless they wish. Many participants in action inquiries, they wish to be named and often to contribute their own accounts of their own learning. So difficulties can be anticipated by being open about what you are doing from the start and seeking and obtaining permission. And also by making, clear throughout that you are monitoring your own practice and not theirs. So often people are only too glad to be identified and to celebrate their work. So in this case, you can just move ahead and identify them, but make sure you have uh, a permission before you do anything. Assure your participants, that you will put their interests first, and that you will maintain confidentiality at all times for those who wish it. So never break their promise to. So it could be expensive if you do so. So let your participants know that you are to be trusted. Draw up and give an ethics statement to each person involved, and assuring good faith, an important issue to be addressed here. Always do what you say you are going to do. This means maintaining good faith at all times. It aims to create a reputation for integrity and protect it. People are more willing to work with someone they trust. Having observed all ethical aspects, you can now exercise your duty to yourself and move ahead and do your project. Ensure that you protect and exercise your own academic freedom to speak from your own perspective as a person, claiming originality of mind and telling your truth with universal intent. And your work is important, and you have a duty of care to others to publish your findings so that they can learn with you and from you with the intent that they should do the same for others too. Next slide, please. We'll move on to the action plan. So, the dual nature of action research. Here I say, learning not just about the action, but through the action. So that is action research. So we have 2 points here. So your action plan should guide you through the process of asking and answering the question, how do I improve what I am doing? I repeat, how do I improve what I am doing? And explaining why this is an important question and the possible significance of an answer. So the dual nature of action research here, be aware when planning that action research involves two interrelated processes here. First, you take action in the social world by doing things differently in relation to the people you are working with. You carry out certain actions and monitor what happens. So this can be seen as action in the social world out there. At the same time, you think about what you are doing as you carry out the actions, and reflect on what you are learning. So you are learning not only about the action, but also through the action. Next is a task to you, the next slide. So you can write down your research issue and you can turn it into a research question. So here, I have given you the format on the right-hand side. Make it as your value. Am I living towards it, or how can I see that? Say why this is an issue for you. So why am I saying this? Perhaps it is simply bothering you or has implications for your work. Perhaps it is something related to your values, such as justice or freedom, but you're not living in the direction of your values. Write down what value underpins your practice and say whether you are or not living towards it, or give some examples of situations which would show whether or not you were living towards your value. So that is important in this task. Next slide, please. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, same thing, same. I have another 2 tasks for you, which you can try doing it, or you can try applying your action research in it. Like using whichever form suits you, write down and what kind of evidence you would aim to produce to show you're living in the direction of your value, or using whatever kind of notes suit you, write down what you're hoping to claim through your research and what kind of evidence will help you, help your validation group and critical friends to make judgments about what you have done. So this is a task for you which you can do later after the session. Next slide, please. And here come, these are the examples. We've been talking so much on this, what kind of questions arises when you do action research. So how do I manage my time better? How do I improve the quality of my educational leadership? And how do I encourage good staff relations? So this kind of questions, that arises when you take up this action research. Next slide. And here comes, how do I generate evidence to support my climb to knowledge? So this is something very, very important in action research, like, climb to knowledge. So what do you do here? So all research, including action research, aims to make a climb to knowledge. So in action research, you aim to explain that you now know something that you did not know before. So this could be about how you have learned about your practice by studying your practice, and you are able to describe and explain, what you are doing. So claims to knowledge need to be supported by validated evidence so that the claim does not appear as opinion or supposition. So evidence is generated from data. So this means gathering quality data from which you will select pieces to stand as evidence. So what is important for climb to knowledge here is monitoring practice and looking for data, gathering, sorting and storing the data, and turning the data into evidence. Next slide, please. So how do you achieve your vision? So that's important. After knowing action research and how it is going to, how it is going to improve you, achieving your vision is very, very, very important. So what is the relationship between your action research and the creation of good social order? So the relationship is that future social orders begin here and now, where you are. Because of the inherent, generative transformational nature of human processes, new practices influenced by new thinking will develop out of old ones. So you can influence your own context, and your context can influence increasingly wider contexts, and you really do have the capacity for global influence here. So this is how you achieve your vision. Next slide, please. So I would say there is an unlimited scope for teachers wishing to develop, a customized action research projects of their own. As the topics for investigation are as multifarious as the daily vignettes evidenced in the teaching profession. So anybody can get into this action research. Last slide, please. So, to conclude, I would say there is a clear evidence to suggest that action research is a valuable exercise for teachers to undertake. It offers teachers a systematic, collaborative, and participatory process of inquiry that actively seeks to address areas of concern or interest. So additionally, action research provides teachers with the technical skills and specialized knowledge required to effect positive change within classrooms, schools, and communities. Ultimately, the solutions-based focus, emphasis on fostering practitioner empowerment, and pragmatic appeal of action research collectively render a worthwhile professional development activity for teachers. So these are the references. Last slide. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for this wonderful presentation, ma'am. Dear participants, now if you have any questions, you may post them in the chat box, or you just unmute your mic and you may ask.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Good afternoon, ma'am. This is Ramya Prakash from the Department of English, PSGR Krishnamal College for Women. First of all, I would like to congratulate you for the innovative presentation, which was an entirely a new concept, a different concept for us. And madam, my question is, how does the use of technology and the usage of device, like most of the classes are online nowadays,
Yes.
affect the writing process of the students community? And this particular question is from an article which I read from the Sage journals.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, okay,
So is it the writing process or learning process?
writing process, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, I do agree with what you say, Ramya.
Yes, ma'am.
In a traditional classroom setup,
Yes.
we monitor the students, but
Okay.
that is not possible when we do it online. That is
Yes.
one drawback, and I guess you must have received lots and lots of memes on this, where we have seen how children have taken up, or how seriously the children have taken up the online classes, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
I would say it is on the part of the teacher. We have to make them make them write, or get them exercises to be done and submitted online. But we are not sure whether they are writing it on their own, or they are copying it from the internet, or anything of that kind. So
Yes.
I do have the same thing, Amma, because even I'm giving exercises to my students, and they finish it in no time and they send it to me. But still,
Yes.
again, as we've been talking here about the trust, the basic trust between the teacher and the student should have, he or she should have a kind of notion that she should improve herself in writing process. So if he or she is taking it up in the right way, and does it with her own interest, then it is possible, Amma. Otherwise, as teachers, we can't do anything, I believe, through online mode. Through
Yes.
online mode. Yeah. If we are there, if we face them, then it is easy for us to correct them. So online mode, I think this is one kind of a hurdle for all of us.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh, thank you, ma'am. Now there is a question from Sandeep Patil.
Okay.
So in this pandemic situation, how to evaluate our online teaching? So would you like to throw some light with some methods, approach, or rubrics to evaluate our own teaching, including citing some standard evaluation formats?
Uh, yeah, online teaching has become an important aspect now in this pandemic. But sitting in a place like Kodaikanal, you won't. I really do not know. Like I could speak to you for such a long time without any break. Yeah. We have all those problems here. So apart from the internet problems that we face, there are lots and lots of softwares available, and how we take up the online classes for the students too, and what methods that we as teacher or as a teacher, what methodology I am going to apply to teach the students matters, because it depends upon the kind of students that you have, because we teach for the rural and tribal children, and my methodology is different, and maybe how people in Bharatiya University teach is different. Because I have seen that, I've been I've witnessed it when I was there. So I believe that it depends upon the teachers to analyze and do a research on how it has to be taken up, and how you have to how you deliver your lecture to your students. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. There's one more question, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, can you please elaborate on the importance of collaborative reflection in action research?
Yeah, collaborative reflection. See, as I was just talking to you about action research, because I always feel that this action research has helped, or it will help any teacher in her career, as a learner, right? So, in a teaching career, you become a learner. So, how you encourage your students learning and yourself. So not only your individual stuff, but if you make it as a collaborative research, imagine the output of action research is going to be enormous, enormous, because it is not that only your ideas are coming up, like what is my concern, or why am I concerned, or how can I improve the situation. Like it becomes what is our concern, and why are we concerned, and how can we improve the situation. Likewise, now if you pull in all these things together, and if there is a collaborative kind of research, and you're going to theorize it in an enormous way. So it is good in action. Collaborative part of action research is possible, and it is doable.
Thank you, ma'am. Dear participants, now thank you for your interaction. Respected madam, we thank you on behalf of the organizing committee and on behalf of the Department of English. I wish to extend our sincere thanks for spending your valuable time with us. And as I told you in the beginning, that ma'am, she used to give us new perspectives, and when it comes to research, she will always provide us enormous information on a new direction. No, as usual, no, from today also I witnessed the same thing. No, she talked elaborately on action research, beginning from introducing it and giving an elaborative explanation of various aspects associated with action research. It is one of the such wonderful sessions, ma'am, that and we are so happy that all our resource persons are enlightening our participants in the English research trends in very unique way. As you have done it today, it was so unique, so special that no one touched upon, and you have given all the minute detail about the topic that you have chosen. It is not only introducing the topic, that you also have shown the passion that you have for teaching, and your passion for sharing your knowledge with others. And I thank you for all these contributions that you have made for your wonderful session. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr. Padmanabhan. Thank you so much.